I still remember the chill that ran through my body that night. We were at Mia's engagement party, the fancy restaurant glowing with soft lights and laughter. My palms were sweaty as I walked up to my family with Daniel beside me. This was the first time they'd meet him after 6 months of dating, and I wanted so badly for things to be different this time. "Everyone, this is Daniel, my boyfriend," I said, trying to sound confident. My mother's face twisted into that familiar smirk. Here she goes again with the fake boyfriend. She turned to my sister and her fiancé. "Olga's unlovable. I birthed her. I should know. Why do you think I named her Olga?" She was the ugliest baby I'd ever seen. The table erupted with laughter. My father chuckled, barely looking up from his plate. My brother snickered, and Mia, the golden child, covered her mouth but couldn't hide her amusement. Daniel stepped forward. "Excuse me, but that's incredibly disrespectful." My father waved his hand dismissively. "You're a good actor, I'll give you that. How much is she paying you?" "He needs to leave," my mother said. "This is embarrassing." I ran to the bathroom, tears streaming down my face. Daniel found me there minutes later, wrapped his arms around me, and whispered, "They're not worth your tears, Olga. Not one bit." I was always the odd one out in my family. While my parents, brother, and 2 sisters looked like they could be on magazine covers, I was just plain. My mother never let me forget it. "Beauty runs in our blood," she'd say, "except when it comes to you." In school photos, they'd place me at the end, as if my ordinary brown hair and round face might contaminate their blonde perfection. When I got straight A's, my father would shrug. "The only reason God didn't give us money is because nobody should have it all," he'd say, making it clear their beauty was worth more than my brains. My room was the smallest, my clothes were always hand-me-downs, and my achievements hung in the shadows of Mia's dance recitals or my brother Troy's football games. At dinner, I'd sit quietly while they talked about their popularity and dates, knowing I had nothing to contribute that they'd value. By 16, I'd accepted my place as the family disappointment. I threw myself into books and computers, finding friends in stories and code that never judged me by my appearance. Those childhood wounds never really healed, though. Even now, at 28, those memories follow me like a dark cloud, raining doubt on my happiest moments. Getting my computer science degree should have been a proud moment. I graduated top of my class and landed a job at a leading tech company. I finally moved out of my parents' house into my own apartment, small but mine. I thought things would change. They didn't. "Tech? Isn't that for people who can't make it in the real world?" my mother said when I told them about my new job. My starting salary was more than my father made, but he just muttered, "Hope it lasts," like my success was a temporary mistake. When I bought my first car, nothing fancy but new and paid for by me, Mia asked if it was one of those charity things for underprivileged workers. My brother joked about computer nerds whenever I talked about my projects. Each achievement became another chance for them to remind me of my place. They'd say things like, "Well, at least you have your job since you don't have looks or a boyfriend." When I got promoted to senior developer, my mother said, "I guess they needed to fill some diversity quota." No matter how far I climbed, they were right there, stepping on my fingers, making sure I knew that in their eyes, I would always be little. Ugly Olga, who should be grateful for whatever scraps of life she got. Daniel came into my life like a warm light on a freezing day. He was the new director of engineering at my company, brilliant, kind, and somehow impossibly interested in me. We kept our relationship quiet because of company policy against boss-employee dating. But I had another reason for secrecy: my family. The first time Daniel asked me to lunch, I almost refused. Why would someone like him, with his confident smile and startling green eyes, want to spend time with me? But he persisted, finding excuses to work with me on projects, complimenting my coding solutions, asking for my opinions. "You're the sharpest mind in this building, Olga," he told me once, and it felt like the first genuine compliment I'd ever received. I learned that Daniel came from money, serious money. His father owned a chain of luxury hotels, and he'd grown up with privilege I couldn't imagine. Yet he never flaunted it. He drove a modest car and lived in a comfortable but not extravagant apartment. He valued hard work and intelligence, the very things my family dismissed in me. 3 months into dating, he told me he loved me. I cried, not from happiness but from fear. Because deep down I was waiting for the punchline, the moment he'd laugh and say it was all a joke, just like my family would have done. Our first date haunts me still. Not because it went badly, but because I nearly ruined something beautiful with my fears. Daniel had suggested a quiet restaurant by the lake. I spent hours getting ready, changing outfits 6 times, applying and reapplying makeup to hide what my mother always called my unfortunate features. When he picked me up, he said, "You look beautiful," and I immediately scanned his face for signs of mockery. There were none, but I couldn't believe him. At dinner, I was stiff and nervous. When he asked about my family, I gave short answers. When he complimented my work, I deflected. My internal voice was screaming, "He doesn't really want you. This is pity, or a bet, or something else. Nobody chooses Olga." "What's wrong?" he finally asked, reaching for my hand across the table. I flinched away. "Why are you doing this?" I blurted out. "Dating me? Is it because you're new and don't know anyone else yet?" The hurt in his eyes was real. "I'm doing this because you're incredible, Olga. I've never met anyone who thinks the way you do, who sees problems and solutions so clearly. I'm doing this because when you smile, which isn't often enough, it lights up the room." I didn't believe him, not then, but it was a start. Our first kiss happened on our 3rd date, outside my apartment door. We'd spent the evening at a tech talk, then walking around the city, talking about everything from quantum computing to our favorite ice cream flavors. For hours, I forgot about my insecurities. But when Daniel gently tucked my hair behind my ear and leaned in, panic flooded back. His lips touched mine, soft and warm, and I froze completely. In that beautiful moment, all I could think was, this isn't real. He can't possibly want to kiss me. I pulled away abruptly. "I'm sorry," I whispered, not meeting his eyes. "What's wrong?" he asked, his voice gentle. "Nothing. I don't understand why you'd want this. Want me?" The words tumbled out before I could stop them. Daniel looked at me for a long moment, then said something I'll never forget. "Olga, whoever made you believe you're not worthy of love did you a terrible wrong. I hope someday you'll let me help you undo that damage." That night, I called a therapist for the first time. I didn't tell Daniel until weeks later, but that kiss and my broken reaction to it was the moment I realized how deeply my family had wounded me. It was the first step in a long journey toward believing I deserved love. The drive home from Mia's engagement party was silent. Tears dried on my cheeks as Daniel navigated the dark streets, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. I could feel his anger, not at me, but for me. "I can't do this anymore," I finally said, my voice hoarse. "I can't keep letting them hurt me." Daniel nodded slowly. "You shouldn't have to. I think I need to cut them off, completely." Saying the words out loud felt both terrifying and freeing. No more holidays, no calls, no visits, nothing. "Are you sure that's what you want?" he asked, not judging, just making sure. "Yes. No, I don't know." Fresh tears came. "They're horrible to me, but they're still my family. Is it wrong that part of me still loves them, still hopes they'll change?" Daniel pulled into my apartment complex and turned to face me. "It's not wrong. It makes you human. But Olga, loving someone doesn't mean letting them destroy you piece by piece." That night, I deleted my family from my phone. I blocked their numbers, their social media accounts, their email addresses. It felt like cutting off a limb. The pain was unbearable, but somehow I knew it was necessary for survival. "What if I regret this?" I whispered to Daniel as we lay in the darkness. "Then we'll deal with that together," he promised. "But right now, you need to heal." The first month without my family was the hardest. I'd reach for my phone to text Mia about a TV show, or I'd see something that reminded me of my brother, and the habit of wanting to share it would hit me before I remembered. I cried a lot those first few weeks. Daniel held me through it all. But slowly, something amazing happened. Without their voices in my head telling me I wasn't enough, I started to flourish. At work, I became bolder, pitching ideas in meetings, leading projects. My bosses noticed. My confidence grew. My therapist, Dr. Chen, helped me identify the patterns of emotional abuse I'd normalized. "What your family did wasn't just mean, Olga," she explained. "It was systematic destruction of your self-worth." Daniel and I grew closer. Without my fear of introducing him to my family, our relationship deepened. We talked about the future. I met his college friends, who welcomed me warmly. For the first time, I experienced what it felt like to be accepted just as I was. The nightmares became less frequent. The voice in my head that sounded like my mother grew quieter. Sometimes I'd catch my reflection and not immediately look for flaws. 6 months into my family's silence, I realized something profound. I was happy. Really, truly happy. And it felt like coming home to myself. 7 months into our relationship, Daniel and I flew to Tokyo for a major tech conference where he was presenting. The city was a dazzling maze of lights and sounds that overwhelmed my senses in the best way possible. During the day, we attended sessions together, Daniel proudly introducing me to industry leaders as our company's most innovative developer. But something strange started happening. Daniel kept disappearing at odd hours. He'd make excuses about quick meetings or calls with the home office, but return looking nervous, checking his phone constantly. My old insecurities crawled back like hungry spiders. On our third night, he left our hotel room after a mysterious text. "Just need to check something," he said vaguely. I waited until the door closed, then crumbled. Was he meeting someone else? Maybe a beautiful Japanese woman who didn't carry emotional baggage like mine? Dr. Chen had warned me about this. How trauma makes trust nearly impossible. How my brain would look for evidence to confirm my deepest fear, that I was unlovable. Logically, I knew Daniel had given me no real reason to doubt him, but logic couldn't touch the panic spreading through my chest. I scrolled through his emails when he left his laptop open, something I'm not proud of. I checked his calendar. Nothing suspicious appeared, which somehow made me more anxious. What was he hiding? On our last night in Tokyo, Daniel asked me to dress up for dinner. I almost refused, planning to confront him about his strange behavior instead. But I put on the black dress I'd packed just in case and met him in the lobby, my heart heavy with dread. The taxi took us to Tokyo's Skytree, one of the tallest structures in the world. We rode the elevator in silence to Sky Restaurant 634, situated over 1,000 feet above the city. The view was breathtaking. Tokyo stretched below us like a galaxy of lights, but I barely noticed it. "Daniel, what's going on?" I asked as soon as we were seated. "You've been acting weird this whole trip." He took a deep breath, reached into his pocket, and my world stopped. Daniel wasn't meeting someone else. He wasn't hiding some terrible secret. He was planning this. As he knelt beside our table holding a small velvet box with a sparkling ring inside, tears blurred my vision. "Olga, you are the most brilliant, kind, and beautiful person I've ever known," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "Will you marry me?" Through tears and trembling lips, I managed to say yes. As he slipped the ring onto my finger, the restaurant erupted in applause. For once in my life, I felt truly seen, truly valued, truly loved. It was the most beautiful moment I'd ever experienced. When we returned home, news of our engagement spread through the office like wildfire. Colleagues I barely knew stopped by my desk with congratulations. My team threw us a surprise party with champagne and cake during lunch. Gifts appeared on my desk, little things like wedding magazines and gift cards for home stores. "Told you they all love you," Daniel whispered as we stood surrounded by well-wishers. That night, I posted a photo on Instagram. My hand with the ring, Tokyo lights in the background, with a simple caption, "I said yes." My phone immediately exploded with notifications from friends and coworkers. Then it appeared, a comment from Mia. Just a movie camera emoji and a laughing face. The implication was clear. She thought this was fake, staged, an act I was putting on. My hands shook as I showed Daniel. "See? Even now they can't believe anyone would want me." Without hesitation, I blocked Mia, then my brother, my parents, and any relatives who might not report back to them. It felt like closing a door on a dark room filled with painful memories. "You don't need their approval," Daniel said, holding me close. "You never did." That night, lying in bed, I realized something important. The contrast between my family's cruelty and the genuine warmth of everyone else in my life made one thing crystal clear. The problem had never been me. Meeting Daniel's parents terrified me. They were wealthy hotel owners who traveled in social circles I couldn't imagine. What would they think of plain Olga with her modest background and tech job? Would they see what my family saw? Someone unworthy of their son? They lived just outside the city in a beautiful house with a view of the lake. When we pulled into their driveway, my stomach was in knots. Daniel squeezed my hand. "They're going to love you," he promised. "Just be yourself." The door opened before we reached it. Daniel's mother rushed out, arms wide. "You must be Olga," she exclaimed, pulling me into a hug like we were already family. His father followed, warm-eyed and smiling, clasping my hand in both of his. During dinner, they asked about my work, not polite small talk, but genuine questions about programming and my projects. When I mentioned a complex algorithm I'd developed, Daniel's father leaned forward with real interest. "Fascinating! No wonder the company values you so highly." They shared embarrassing stories about Daniel's childhood, making him groan and me laugh. When his mother innocently asked about my family, I felt tears spring to my eyes. Daniel quickly signaled them, and his father smoothly changed the subject to their upcoming vacation plans. That small moment of protection, of understanding without words, showed me what a real family was supposed to be like. Planning our wedding became an unexpected joy. I'd always imagined this time would be filled with my mother's criticisms or Mia's attempts to outshine me. Instead, Daniel and I made every decision together, based on what we wanted. We chose a small venue by the lake. I picked a dress that made me feel beautiful, not one chosen to hide my flaws as my mother would have insisted. We selected food we loved, music that meant something to us, and flowers that simply made us happy. One evening, as we addressed invitations, Daniel gently broached the subject. "Olga, I need to ask, do you want to invite your family?" I set down my pen and looked at him. "No," I said firmly. "I've thought about it a lot. I've made so much progress with Dr. Chen. For the first time, I can look in the mirror without hearing my mother's voice telling me what's wrong with me. I can succeed without waiting for someone to take it away. I won't let them ruin this day." Daniel didn't push. He understood what this decision meant, that I was choosing myself, my health, my happiness over obligation and false hope. "Then it's settled," he said, kissing my forehead. "Our wedding will be filled only with people who truly love and support us." For once, planning a major life event felt light, joyful, free from the shadow of judgment that had followed me for so long. 3 months before our wedding, an unknown number flashed on my phone. Normally I'd ignore it, but I was expecting a call from the caterer, so I answered. "So you're getting married and I haven't gotten an invite yet?" My mother's voice, sharp as ever, sent ice through my veins. How had she gotten my new number? "I'm not inviting you," I managed to say, my voice shakier than I wanted it to be. "Don't be ridiculous, Olga. Of course you'll invite us. We're your family." "Family doesn't treat each other the way you've treated me." She laughed, that cold, dismissive sound I knew too well. "Oh, stop being so sensitive. We just joke around. That's what families do." "No, it's not," I said, finding strength. "And I'm done pretending it is." Her voice hardened. "So that's it. You find some man willing to marry you and suddenly you're too good for us? After everything we've done for you? What exactly have you done for me, Mom? Made me feel worthless? Taught me to hate myself?" There was a long silence. Then, her tone switched to wounded innocence. "I don't know why you're being so cruel. Your father will be devastated. He always expected to walk you down the aisle." The manipulation was so obvious now that I was outside its daily influence. "Goodbye, Mom," I said, and hung up. While my personal life was a roller coaster, my career was soaring. I'd been put in charge of developing a new security feature that could potentially save our clients millions and prevented data breaches. The pressure was enormous, but I thrived on the challenge. For 3 months, I led a team of 5 developers, coordinating with security experts and clients to create something truly innovative. I stayed late, came in early, and worked weekends when needed. Daniel supported me completely, bringing dinner to the office on late nights and listening patiently as I talked through coding problems. The day we launched the feature, our CEO called me into his office. My heart pounded. Had something gone wrong? Instead, he stood up when I entered, actually applauded, and announced I was being promoted to Director of Security Innovation with a substantial raise and my own department. "Your work has been exceptional, Olga. This company is lucky to have you." Walking back to my desk, I felt a strange sense of calm validation. No one here asked why someone would choose me. No one suggested my success was luck or a mistake. They saw my value clearly and rewarded it fairly. That evening, Daniel took me out to celebrate. As we clinked glasses, he said, "I'm so proud of you, but not surprised. You've always been extraordinary. Now everyone else is finally seeing it too." For once, I actually believed it might be true. Just when everything seemed perfect, Daniel's parents invited us to brunch with something important to discuss. The serious tone made me nervous. Had they changed their minds about me? Found some reason I wasn't good enough for their son after all? They greeted us warmly, as always, but I could sense tension beneath their smiles. After small talk and mimosas, Daniel's mother reached across the table and took my hand. "Olga, dear, we know about your family situation. Daniel's told us enough for us to understand your decision not to include them in the wedding." My chest tightened. Where was this going? "But," his father continued gently, "we wonder if you might reconsider. A wedding is such an important day, and family, however flawed, is still family." Daniel shifted uncomfortably. "We've already decided," his mother interrupted. "Just hear us out. Olga, honey, maybe this could be your chance to show them how well you've done. Let your father walk you down the aisle. Let them see the beautiful, successful woman you've become." Their intentions were good. They came from a normal family where problems could be solved with communication and compromise. They couldn't understand the depth of my family's cruelty, but their hopeful faces, their genuine belief in reconciliation, wore me down. Against my better judgment, I nodded. "I'll think about it." Daniel squeezed my knee under the table, a silent question. "Are you sure?" I wasn't. Not at all. 1 week later, I stood on my parents' porch, invitations in hand, heart hammering against my ribs. Daniel had offered to come, but this was something I needed to do alone, if only to prove to myself that I could. I rang the doorbell and waited, listening to familiar footsteps approach. My mother opened the door, her eyebrows lifting slightly, the closest thing to surprise she ever showed. "Well, look who's back," she said, not moving to let me in. "Finally remembered where you came from?" I swallowed hard. "I came to invite you to the wedding." She stepped aside, allowing me into the house that had never felt like home. Nothing had changed. The same pristine furniture, the same family photos where I always stood awkwardly apart from my beautiful siblings. My father looked up from his newspaper. "So the wedding's real then?" I handed him an invitation. "I'd like you to walk me down the aisle." He examined the thick cardstock, the gold lettering, the address of the upscale venue. Your fiancé must have money then. Good for you, I suppose. Didn't think you'd manage to land someone with means." I pressed the remaining invitations into my mother's hand. "The wedding is in 2 months. I hope you'll all come." Then I turned and walked out, hiding my tears until I was safely in my car. As our wedding day approached, my anxiety spiraled. Nightmares plagued me. Dreams where my family showed up drunk, or in white dresses to upstage me, or where they stood up during the ceremony to list all my flaws. I'd wake up shaking, Daniel's arms around me the only anchor to reality. "We can still uninvite them," he reminded me gently. "No one would blame you." But a stubborn part of me wanted to go through with it. Maybe to prove something to myself. Maybe because deep down, I still hoped for a Hollywood moment where they'd suddenly realize how wrong they'd been and apologize. The week before the wedding, I had a full-blown panic attack in the middle of a final dress fitting. The seamstress had to call Daniel to come get me. I sat in the dressing room, still in my wedding gown, hyperventilating, convinced I was making a terrible mistake. What if they ruin everything? I sobbed against Daniel's shoulder. What if this is just another chance for them to hurt me? Daniel held me tight. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "They can only ruin this if we let them. This day is about us, about our love, our future. Not about them. You are stronger than their opinions, Olga. You always have been, even when you didn't know it." Somehow his faith in me made me believe in myself, at least enough to move forward. Our wedding day dawned clear and beautiful, the lake shimmering under early autumn sunshine. From the bridal suite window, I watched guests arrive, colleagues in bright dresses, Daniel's extended family laughing together, friends from college I hadn't seen in years. Then my family pulled up. Even from a distance, I could see my mother's critical gaze taking in the venue, my brother checking his reflection in a window, Mia gripping her fiancé's arm like she was entering a competition. They were dressed expensively but somehow looked out of place among the genuinely happy guests. My hands trembled as I finished my makeup. When the coordinator knocked to say it was time, I took a deep breath and opened the door. My father waited in the hallway, uncomfortable in his tuxedo. "You look nice," he said, the closest thing to a compliment he'd ever given me. We walked in silence to the ceremony space. As the music began and we started down the aisle, I felt his arm stiff under my hand. He didn't say a word, didn't smile, didn't squeeze my hand in reassurance like fathers were supposed to do. But then I saw Daniel waiting for me, his eyes shining with tears of joy, and suddenly my father's coldness didn't matter. I was walking toward my future, my real family, the love I deserved all along. When we reached the altar, my father handed me off without emotion and took his seat. I turned to Daniel and never looked back. The ceremony was perfect. Short, meaningful, focused on our love and commitment. As we moved to the reception, I felt lighter than I'd ever been, floating through congratulations and well wishes from people who genuinely cared about us. Then came the toasts. Daniel's best friend went first, sharing funny stories and heartfelt wishes. Daniel's father followed with a beautiful welcome to their family that brought tears to my eyes. The maid of honor, my closest friend from college, spoke about watching me grow into my confidence and find the love I deserved. Then, unexpectedly, Mia stood up and tapped her glass. My stomach clenched. We hadn't planned for her to speak. "I've known Olga all her life," she began, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Who would have thought my plain little sister would end up with such a handsome, successful man? Olga really hit the jackpot with Daniel. I guess he never met me first." She laughed loudly at her own joke. The room fell into awkward silence. Only my family laughed along, my mother nodding in agreement, my brother snickering. Daniel's family looked horrified. My colleagues exchanged uncomfortable glances. I felt my face burn with shame, the familiar feeling of being diminished in public. All my progress, all my strength seemed to evaporate in that moment. I stared at my plate, wishing I could disappear. I couldn't look up, couldn't face the pity I was sure was on everyone's faces. Then I heard a chair scrape back. Daniel stood, taking the microphone from Mia, who looked surprised but smug. "Thank you for that interesting toast," he said, his voice steady but with an edge I'd never heard before. "I'd like to respond, if I may." He turned to face the room, his free hand finding mine. "I want to be very clear about something. I would walk past 100 Mias to get to Olga. My wife," he paused, smiling at the new word, "is the most brilliant, kind, and yes, beautiful woman I have ever known." The room erupted in applause. I looked up, shocked to see people standing, clapping enthusiastically, many nodding in agreement. "Anyone who can't see Olga's worth," Daniel continued, looking directly at my family's table, "is simply not paying attention. Or maybe they're too busy looking in the mirror to notice true beauty when it's right in front of them." More cheers filled the room. I saw my mother's face tighten, my father shift uncomfortably, Mia's smug expression dissolve into embarrassment. For the first time, they were the ones being judged and found wanting, and by an entire room of witnesses. Daniel helped me to my feet, kissed me deeply, and the room erupted again. In that moment, I felt truly, completely invincible. As the reception continued, my family kept to themselves, clearly uncomfortable with how the other guests now viewed them. I danced with Daniel, chatted with friends, and actually enjoyed my wedding day, pushing thoughts of my family to the back of my mind. Near the end of the night, as guests began to leave, my mother cornered me by the gift table. Her smile was tight, calculating. "Beautiful wedding, Olga," she said, her voice syrupy sweet. "Daniel's family must be very wealthy. The hotel business, isn't it?" I nodded cautiously. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Now that you've married into money, you'll help your family out, right? Your father's business could use some investment. And ask Daniel if he knows people in modeling. Your brother and Mia could make good money with the right contracts." So that was it. They hadn't come to support me. They'd come to cash in on my marriage, to use me once again. This time for connections and money. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the shallow, grasping person she truly was. Without a word, I turned and walked away, leaving her hand extended mid-gesture. For the first time in my life, I felt nothing but pity for her. And that feeling was more liberating than all the therapy in the world. The days after our honeymoon were filled with messages from my family. Text after text, call after call, all with the same theme. What could I do for them now that I had access to Daniel's world? My father wanted investment in his struggling business. My brother wondered if Daniel's hotels needed a manager, despite having no relevant experience. Mia asked if we could pay for her extravagant wedding since Daniel's family had so much to spare. My mother sent links to expensive jewelry with hints about her upcoming birthday. Not one message asked how I was doing. Not one showed genuine interest in my life or happiness. Then, they showed up unannounced at our door one Sunday afternoon. My mother pushed past me into our living room, my father following with a folder of business plans. "You've been ignoring our messages," my mother said accusingly. "Family doesn't do that." Something snapped inside me. Years of suppressed feelings erupted at once. "I'm disowning you," I said clearly, calmly. "All of you. The only thing I'm keeping is my name, Olga. The name you gave me to mark me as ugly is now my badge of honor." Their shocked faces almost made me laugh. "Please leave," I continued, opening the door. "Don't contact me again." My father sputtered in disbelief, but my mother grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the door, her face hard with anger. 2 years have passed since that day. 2 years of peace, of growth, of building a life based on love instead of criticism. Cutting off my family brought a grief all its own, mourning not what I lost, but what I never had. Dr. Chen helped me through that process, teaching me that it's okay to miss the idea of family while protecting myself from the reality of mine. Daniel and I bought a house by the lake, close enough to visit his parents for Sunday dinners, but far enough to have our own space. My career continued to flourish. I was promoted to Chief Technology Officer last month, something even I wouldn't have believed possible 3 years ago. Daniel's parents treat me like a daughter, not an outsider. They call just to check in, remember my birthday without being reminded, and value my opinions. Sometimes I still wake up from nightmares where my mother's voice echoes in my head. But those nights grow rarer. The woman I see in the mirror now looks back with confidence instead of shame. Last week, I discovered I'm pregnant. When I told Daniel, he cried with joy, holding me like I was the most precious thing in the world. As I placed my hand on my still flat stomach, I made a silent promise to our child. "You will never know the pain I knew. You will always feel beautiful, valued, and loved exactly as you are." The cycle ends with me. I am Olga, strong, successful, loved, and finally, completely free. The ugly duckling my family mocked has built a beautiful life that they can no longer touch, and that is the sweetest victory of all.